So now we are live on Facebook. Hello,
Fantastic.
everybody. So if you refresh, sometimes you might have to refresh twice, but if you refresh, scroll down, you should see our lovely faces in there. And then when you share to your friends, we'll get going. Here, I can see us. I'll share on my personal page too.
Yeah, it's not showing up. All right, don't worry about it. Well,
Well, you can always share after, or sometimes
Okay.
you need to do refresh. Like if you refresh too soon, it'll make you want to do it again.
Yeah.
You're also officially tagged, so if any of your team sees
Okay.
it, they can add it on there. Got you all tagged up.
Cool.
All right. Shall we get going?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Let's get official. Let me post on mine. And here we go. Record. Hello and welcome to the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest is a best-selling author, TEDx speaker, radio and television personality, and seminar leader who is passionate about expanding the edge of human potential. She has written 2 bestsellers, Calming the Chaos, A Soulful Guide to Managing Your Energy Rather Than Your Time, and Time for Change, Essential Skills for Mastering the Inevitable. She was featured along with Jack Canfield and Don Miguel Ruiz on the Wake Up TV show in 2015. She provides custom training programs, workshops, and keynote speeches for businesses, government, and nonprofit organizations, spiritual centers, and national organizations around the country. Welcome to the show, Jackie Woodside.
All right, awesome. Good to see you, man. Hey, I wrote a 3rd book too called Money Vibe. It's like hot and sexy. So I got to update that.
Yeah, well,
Money Vibe Method, Money Vibe. So it's all about money consciousness. It's my latest book. And so I got to update that.
Oh, yeah, this one's on your official website. Yeah, totally got to update it. You told me you written not just 3. How many books have you written?
I've written, 3 books, a few chapters in other books, and about 12 curriculums. So I've written a lot of stuff. But yeah, when I was like, he doesn't know about Money Vibe. Anyway,
I didn't.
Dude, hey, how are you? Hello to your Facebook family.
Yeah, I'm great. I'm glad to have you on the show. You've done a lot of stuff, and you just said too as well. Books are great, but curriculums. I don't know if I've had a guest on that's written that many curriculums. That's maybe even more in depth than a book. That's a lot of work.
No, it's a lot of work because you have to it's not just a one way writing a curriculum, where I'm like, sharing my thoughts and ideas and organizing and putting it together. But I have to think in a curriculum, like, how are people going to integrate and implement this work? How are they going to interact with it? So, and that's actually what I like better. I love writing curriculums. It comes fairly easy to me. And I guess I must be a relational kind of gal because I love writing them. I love delivering them. I delivered one this morning, and it's just, training and development work, consciousness work it's where it's at for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. You've done this for a long time. You've done a lot of work. So why don't you give the audience who doesn't know you just a little bit about your background, some of the work you've done, and what you're working on now? You can kind of choose on one of the many things.
I talk to a lot of younger coaches, and I can honestly say to most of them, I've been coaching since you were alive, which dates me horribly. But yeah, I've been coaching for 27 years. I've been coaching since before coaching was a thing. I've also been a vegetarian since before that was a thing too, but whatever, that's irrelevant. So I've been coaching for 27 years. I was a licensed clinical therapist. I did psychotherapy for about 30 years, closed that practice just a few years ago to go full-time as an author, speaker, trainer, professional development trainer. And I train coaches, and I do professional development training and occasional keynote speaking. And I lead retreats and talks at spiritual centers and churches in the Unity and New Thought Church movement.
Amazing. And so with all of that, there's a lot of places we can start. So what are you most excited about these days? Is it the Money Vibe book for consciousness, or do you want to dive into more like personal development, spirituality, and some of the things you're training on?
Yeah, I mean, take your pick. It's in some ways the blessing and the curse being an entrepreneur. It's like, oh, I could do that, I could do that, I could do that, and like everything is wildly interesting. And as an entrepreneur, it often helps to kind of focus in. So I guess my passion always, what I am is a consciousness teacher. I am here to raise consciousness on the planet. And because if you go to a cocktail party and say that to people, their eyes glaze over and they don't want to talk to you because they don't know what that means. I've had to find ways to dress that up. So consciousness teacher. So what does that mean? So I wrote a book called Calming the Chaos that is about people's consciousness about time. Consciousness about time. So what does that even mean? I have a real specific way that I use consciousness, a way that I define it. And it's the sum total of your beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts. So that's like a thing. And if you pay attention to the acronym there, BEAT, it's your beat that creates your vibratory pattern. So your beat creates your vibe. Beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts. Not like, a therapist might want to talk about your feelings, or a cognitive approach might be like, well, what are you thinking about? I say that's what your inner domain is, one vibratory pattern that's about how you believe and what you think and how you feel and the attitudes that you hold. So all of my work is helping people recognize that if you bring the same beat to life, you're going to have the same outcome, even if you change your spouse, even if you change your job, even if you change your geographic location. If you don't change the inner domain, you're going to keep creating the same life experience over and over and over again, both because you will interpret things the same way and your vibe will attract the same circumstances and kind of people, and be like, oh, how did this happen to me again? Well, it happened again because you haven't changed. You haven't changed that resonant pattern, vibratory pattern of who you are. Does that sound too woo-woo?
No, that sounds great. Well, you defined consciousness in a way that I think everybody can understand. The acronym.
It's my definition of it. A lot of people define it different ways, which is one of the downfalls of the field, but I like to tell people what it is that I'm talking about when I use that word. Most people think it means awareness. And to me, awareness is your access to being able to observe and elevate your consciousness. Awareness, right. Access to being able to observe your beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts.
I'm writing down beat as you go along. So that's really intelligent and smart. So when we need to change our vibrational state to make a change in our life and the beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts.
Yeah, good.
How do we begin to do that? So you talk about Money Vibe a little bit. It's a new book. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff out there around money consciousness, prosperity consciousness. Yeah. And I would love to get your take on that, because you're correct. When we're not able to change the inner, the outer, no matter how things are changing, we still might get the same result. Like an example would be a pro athlete. A lot of them end up going broke. Even though that they're very wealthy, their consciousness doesn't change. So maybe you can speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I actually put that in my book. I put examples of people either from, the arts and entertainment industry or athletics industry who were, multimillionaires who literally ended up flat broke. Also lottery winners. Very high percentage of lottery winners end up going bankrupt and end up flat broke. So you're absolutely right. And what happens what happens there is that it is your beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts that create both what you attract and how you behave. It's your level of consciousness, or your vibe, if you will, that determines how you see things and how you interact with the world. So how I have people interact with that, what I teach in the book, is that you really need to get underneath each one of these. So identify, what are your beliefs about money? What are your attitudes about money? So like I said, awareness is access to being able to change or elevate your consciousness. So a lot of people, you know this from being around a lot of human beings, a lot of people live in scarcity consciousness, even though they might have, I've got clients who are millionaires who live in scarcity consciousness, like there's not enough. And so that whole consciousness of not enough is what the problem is. In fact, the subtitle of my book is The Financial Freedom, Whether You Have Money or Not. Because how I define financial freedom is never having to worry about money, whether you have any or not. Right? Because worrying about money is a state of consciousness. Worry is a consciousness. So so that's how I define it. And then what I teach in the book and in all of my work, and you said, what do you do about that? How do you change it? I teach this three-step process of catch it, challenge it, and change it. So catch it means be aware of what you're thinking and feeling and attituding and emoting. You know, what are your beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts about whatever, about what you just said to me, about what my spouse just did, whatever. Catch it so you can observe it. You cannot change what you cannot see, right? So awareness of what you are thinking and feeling is the first step. And then challenge it, because you know this, a lot of people just have the same thoughts over and over and over again. So when I catch myself having limited thoughts, limited beliefs, I have this inner dialogue, which we all can do. Use your mind to train your brain to change your neurology. That's a whole other topic. We can go there if you want. Use your mind to change your brain to change your neurology, and then you'll start having different thoughts. But you challenge it by saying, is that thought going to create the outcome that you want? If you continue that belief, what future does it hold? Is that all you got? You've been thinking that since you were 12 years old. Is that the best you can do? So my inner dialogue is a little snarky. Some people's might be a little bit more loving, like, oh, you deserve a better thought than that. My inner talk is a little more snarky than that. But you know, whatever yours is, challenge what you've just said to yourself. Just debunk that thought. So catch it, challenge it, and then change it. What thought, emotion, attitude is going to create the experience I want to have? You know, getting on to this time with you. You know, I'm looking on, like, you know, who is this Matt guy? It's like, oh my God, Matt Belair. He's like a big shot. Like, look at that body. Like, look at all these people that he studied with. It's like, oh my God, like, how did I get on his show? I don't really have anything to add to him. Right? And it's like, oh, catch it. It's like, oh, wow, really nice, Jack. You've been saying that about yourself since you started like JV basketball. I'm not good enough to be on the court with them. So I'm not good enough is like what you've been saying your whole freaking life. And what have you found? Well, when I go down that tunnel, I play small. Oh, okay. Well, what else could you say? Hey, Matt invited me on his show. We must be in the same vibratory pattern. It's got to be something that we have to exchange with one another. And therefore I can move into this space without calling you up and be like, no, I shouldn't be on your show. So that's how it works, right? Like, that's how you elevate consciousness. And the more you do that, right, use your mind to train your brain. The more you do that, catch it, challenge it, change it, catch it, challenge it, change it, you literally are rewiring your brain. You cut off those old neurological patternings that say, I suck and I'm not good enough and oh, be careful and what are they going to think of me? Those actually extinguish and you create new neurological patterns that say, why not? What the heck? What do you got to lose? And then you have a different experience of life. And then I also believe all of humanity changes. Right?
Wonderful. Yeah.
Anytime anyone raises in consciousness, the one consciousness changes.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that 100%. And it's so simple. It's like 3 steps, but it requires your awareness first. Yeah. And I think it's like we have 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day, and something like 90% of them are repetitive.
Repetitive thoughts. Yeah.
Exactly. One of the things that I like to do with the people that I coach is whatever will identify the belief systems or something that they're struggling with, something that's repetitive, and give them something outside of themselves. So a bracelet. So I was like, okay, these are the things we've identified. Let's just take one. When you catch yourself and use awareness of that limiting belief, whether it's money, I'm not good enough, or whatever the case is, you stop, you take the bracelet off, and then you ask yourself, so what do I want? And then you're like, oh, well, I don't feel like I'm good enough. I'm like, oh, I want to feel like I'm good enough, like I'm worthy, or I'm grateful, or change your state in some way. And you put it out. And I find that it helps to get out of the brain into the physical body. So it's repatterning a little bit, but it helps with that awareness piece. Because a lot of the time we're just on the autopilot, basically kicking ourselves and not being nice. You know, it's just like, it's not a great autopilot.
It takes such a high level of awareness. And you're so smart, Matt, because the first thing you said was like, it seems so simple, and that's exactly what I say to people. These principles are not difficult. It's very simple, but it's not easy. And the difference between simple and easy is where people think, well, that can't be it. There's got to be something more. There's got to be the next podcast. There's got to be the next teacher, because it can't be that simple. No, really. It is that simple. The process is that simple, but it's not easy. It's constant, rigorous, self-reflective awareness of like, wow, That's interesting thought. And I like that middle step of challenging it. It's like really bringing in that inner dialogue, that higher observer. So then it becomes kind of the limitation, the higher observer, and the new possibility. So I'm kind of operating in this tripart experience of myself all the time. The limitation, the higher observer, and the new possibility. And I think that mirrors a little bit what they say in New Thought, the Holy Trinity of mind, idea, and expression. Mind, idea, and expression. So there's the mind of God, and then there's our yammer mind, right? So like, which one are you going to be lived by? So for me, I want to align with the higher mind, Christ consciousness, the oneness consciousness that is in all humanity, that we all have access to. And that's when we're aligned with that, you get the idea, the creative inspiration, the idea that wants to be birthed through your life. And then all our job is in life is expression. Go out and have this conversation and put it out on Facebook and on YouTube and on your podcast. It's just such a beautiful way of expanding the whole universe. And all of that starts with being able to observe and redirect what's happening in your experience.
Oh yeah, I love all that. And what I would ask, because I'm curious, is when I was studying Zen, and I was probably in my teens, and it would talk about awareness, and you're supposed to stay in the present moment, right? Meditation is practicing, observing the thoughts, and then ideally getting to a space where you're just breathing and you're actually having no thoughts. It's great, but it's not most of meditation. Most of it is seeing how neurotic you are.
Yeah, right.
And so then they say, okay, now go into the world, and their principles are very simple as well. It's like non-attachment, non-judgment. I'm blanking on the third one. Non-attachment, non-judgment. So basically they're all similar, but it's a lot harder to do. So as I'm going around and I'm doing the dishes, trying to be mindful, or I'm practicing this awareness. Now, when a person, let's say the money vibe, for example, because I'm sure it's in here talking the principles, what I see a lot of people struggle with is that neurology, that whatever they're set on, they might be set on a life where they're like, you know what, I'm getting by and I'm okay, but I want more. And they can't get to the space where they can create a belief system or neurology or a consciousness that allows them to move towards something more fulfilling in a powerful way.
Okay.
Or let's say they're struggling with weight or money. So many people are struggling with money.
Yeah.
I love to say that I'm out of that thing, but I know where this consciousness came from, and I've looked at it and dissected it. And I find that I'll do it within myself. I'll get to a point, then it'll go down. I'll get to the point and go down. So it does require this constant attention. So do you just apply that same 3-step process and make sure that it's not sliding to overcome, let's say, a limiting belief around money, a limiting belief around weight loss or self-worth? I think that those are very common with people. Also, anxiety and depression being very common and habitual. And that's the problem, because they're habitual.
Absolutely.
And you need to samurai sort them.
Yeah. Wow. You said there's like 1,000 things in there that I could respond to. So one of the things that you said is that you kind of know where it comes from, right? You've looked at it, you've tried to understand it, you know where it comes from. I just want to encourage you and your readers to identify that what you just said is a psychological paradigm. I am this way right now because of some things that happened in my past that made me think and feel and believe the way I think and feel and believe. And if I could just understand that, if I could figure that out, then I would have a new and different experience. And so one of my things is that I don't believe that that's necessarily true. I don't believe that we are only a product of what's happened in the past, and that if you could just figure out why, then you're going to have a different future. And oh, by the way, I was a psychotherapist for 30 years. So I'm really well versed in that paradigm. I would say I've spent my 10,000 hours of mastery in that paradigm. And what I saw over and over and over again is that people can spin around, if I just understood why, if I just understood why. In fact, this is in the Money Vibe book. You can ask and figure out, and if you will, make up why forever. Well, why am I overweight? Well, I'm overweight because in 2nd grade, so-and-so said blah, 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 and therefore I comfort myself with eating, or because I was sexually abused and I have to cover up my body, or I'm overweight because my grandmother was overweight, or I'm like, we can do that forever and not necessarily change our consciousness. That's a psychological paradigm. X happened, therefore Y. And I really believe, probably not in our lifetime, but in soon and subsequent, and I would love it in my lifetime, generations, we're going to find the people that our children's children will look at each other and be like, do you remember that like in old generations, they used to think that who they were is based on the past? Isn't that the funniest thing? So I want to present a new possibility. And the new possibility is that who you are is based on who you declare yourself to be in the present and moving into the future that you envision. And the framework for that is going back to exactly where you began when I said there was 1,000 things you said that I could respond to. You said, well, suppose I have some other desire that I've yet to manifest, and I keep going round and round. I think that's because people don't really understand what desire is from our spiritual perspective, our spiritual nature. They're responding from their human nature, thinking that there's something that I have to go do because I have this desire. And maybe this desire itself is bad. Maybe there's this desire, I shouldn't have this desire. When in fact, if you come at the fact that you have that desire, only you're like the one, like some of the things that you've done, the snowboarding and the, jumping out of things, and, the things you've done with your body and the training that you've done, dude, have at it. That's like your desire, because I'm not jumping out of anything. I'm not flying down, mountains with a wood strapped on my feet. Like, I'm not doing that. That's your desire. And the way that you've brought it forth in the world is such a beautiful, perfect self-expression of your soul's manifestation. So if people relate to, I want this thing, but they're immediately cutting off their spiritual purpose. You are here to make manifest your persistent desires of your heart. For years, I wanted to be a spiritual teacher and, author and speaker, like do this work for years. I was a social worker. And the first time that I told somebody that I wanted to go out and do that, it was this man who was like 6'6", and he was like a corporate guy, and I was working for him. And he looked down at me over his big glasses and said, "Oh, you want to be a speaker? My brother-in-law is one of those people, and he's so full of himself. Who do you think you are anyway?" And that was all it took, because that was already my own inner voice. Who do you think you are anyway? And that set me back. But the desire persisted. So when people understand that getting in touch with that desire is what you're here to do, and that your fulfillment will occur through bringing it forth in life, then you're going to and then you create your identity from there. Who am I? I am that desire manifest in the world. Does that make sense? So how you identify yourself isn't trying to figure out the past. It's declaring the present and future, and then inventing yourself into that being. So one of the things I teach in my life design course is for people to go through a spiritual process of writing a mission statement based on who you came here to be. And it's always something that it's so big that you feel a little embarrassed telling people about it. And so I had mine for 10 years and I wouldn't tell anybody about it. And Matt, what happened in those 10 years is that I suffered. I went through depression, I went through addictions, I went through all kinds of things, because there was this thing that I came here to deliver on earth, and then there was how I was off here being in life. So for people who have that, like, I'm stuck in this loop and I can't go on, the first thing that needs to shift is your relationship to the desire itself. Second thing that needs to shift is your identity, but probably even before that, your paradigm about your identity. Who you are is not your past. Who you are is the future that you're declaring and living into.
That's powerful stuff. I was just gonna keep listening. Holy smokes,
I'm like, I feel like I'm giving a TED talk. I should shut up and let him talk back now.
No, heck no. I love listening. That's the whole point of this thing, is I get to learn and I get to share, the wisdom of incredible people. That is incredible. I think your background in therapy and psychology is is extraordinary. And when you have that background, you're able to pick out specific words because the words are the thoughts, and that's what's going on in the brain. And so you can kind of like, oh, wait, hold on. And you catch one, then you can kind of do neurosurgery and offer a perspective or a point of view or a tool that's helpful to help with a more empowering perspective. So all of that was absolutely incredible. I'd love to know more about most of that, including the life design course and how you do it. And I like what you said about the mission statement, because when I coach people, I bet your life design coach is probably far superior to mine, because,
very sweet of you.
You've done it for longer and you respect people who've been in the work for a long time. And I'm learning from giants, and I'm applying it, and I'm testing with myself and testing with others, seeing what I'm capable of. And one of the things is I get people to write down what's your dream, what's your purpose, what's your passion, what's your mission, then get them to write it out again. And a lot of the time people aren't able to think big or freely. They either need some sort of relaxing. So sometimes we'll do like a heart hypnosis session, and I'll hypnotize them into their heart and ask them the same questions and record it. And then it's different because their consciousness that's not limited, afraid of money or whatever they have is not there. And I'm like, got it. And then they're like, oh, that really is it. But I couldn't before, and they'll always say, I knew it was there. I knew that was a thing, but they couldn't come out and say it. So
that's a great tool, Matt. That's a really, really great tool to be able to hypnotize people and just, remove that conscious defensive structures in the mind.
Yeah. Our mind can be, what do you call it? Like the critical factor, or like the shield between our dreams. It's like, we got to be practical. We got to be logical. We got to be analytical. The dreams are back here, and the dreams are not going to pay you money. So there's no way that you're getting through.
Right,
exactly. And so I would love to, ask you a question around what I feel like with my friends and the people that I work with, and what I observe in the world is a lot of people, they'll say, I want to know what my soul's calling is or my purpose, right? But I can't create that gap between how I'll make money. And I assume that your book might be able to help those. So what do you recommend with people if you're going to teach a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old in life crisis, like I need to change, right? And they want to connect to more meaning and purpose in their life. And they're also they're worried about the money thing. So how do they get in the vibe? Because some people have kids coming in the world, and they have families, and they're like, hey, Jackie, I got baseball, I got basketball to pay for. This kid wants Nikes. I can't, my job pays for the Nikes. How do I do those two things?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I was in that exact same spot. And I'll tell you a little bit of my story, and then I'll answer your question. So I've twice left gainful employment to just kind of leap into something else. Once I was a full-time clinician running an inpatient psychiatric unit, and, went off to be the speaker. And that's actually when that big guy looked at me and said, oh, who do you think you are? And I failed. I actually didn't become a speaker, but I had a really successful private practice doing mental health consulting and therapy. So nobody would watch that video and be like, that Jackie, she failed. Like nobody would. They'd be like, oh, there's Jackie, like doing her mental health thing, and she's got a great career, and isn't that awesome? But inside, I knew that like I left that job to become a speaker and a spiritual teacher, but then the big guy and my own fear, and and I failed. I didn't succeed. So fast forward 10, 12 years, whatever, 15 years, whatever, of doing therapy. And the calling never left me, because your soul's purpose never leaves you, right? So there's still, I want to be a speaker, I want to be a speaker. So it's so funny. I bought a summer home that was my great aunt and uncle's cottage. And it was in my hometowns where I always wanted to live, upstate New York, Thousand Islands. And I was like, I'm not going to own that summer home and not spend my summers there. I'm not going to do it. So it's time. I'm going to close my practice and go into, being a speaker and author and start writing books again. And so this is why I always laugh at this, because I took on a second mortgage, a mortgage for a summer home, and cut off my income stream at the same time. So, right. So I will tell you how not to do it.
Super practical.
Right. Really freaking stupid. Now, The good news is here I am. Like, I'm fine. It didn't kill me. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I am proof of that. So I share that with people because it's like, you can do it, but there's probably easier ways. So what I would say to a 20-year-old is probably different than what I would say to a 30 or 40-year-old. 20-year-old's got less to lose. I'd say, leap, figure it out. Everything is figure outable, and take that leap. You got nothing to lose because you're 20 and you probably don't have kids and aren't married. And, you get up to someone, and generally it's not somebody in their 20s that says that anyway, because they're not as well established. But, you get up into your late 20s, 30s, and into your 40s. To that person, I would say, absolutely, start today. Do one small thing every day toward your heart's passion. Do one small thing every day toward your heart's passion. It can be a Google search. It can be an informational interview. It can be writing 800 words of the book that you want to write. It can be starting to design a website of the thing that you want to do. Like, it can be painting in your studio. I don't care. Do one small thing every day. Like, even if it's 5 minutes. And don't leave your job, by the way. Don't have the first thing you do leave your job, because that intensifies or amplifies the scarcity consciousness, and that creates a vibratory pattern of fear. And you don't want to do that. It doesn't mean you won't be successful. I'm not saying that. Just make it easy on yourself. Keep your day job, and be like, well, yeah, but I've got the day job, and I've got the kids, and I got it. You spend 5 minutes on Facebook. You spend 5 minutes scrolling through your Twitter feed. Spend 5 minutes of focused activity every day for 30 days towards your dream. Write 3 sentences. Tell 5 people this week that you're going to do this thing. I don't care what it is. Do it consciously and do it consistently, because consistency breeds momentum. Consistency creates an energy that expands itself, because part of what will have you be successful is the actions. More of what will have you be successful is the energy that you're creating. And that's really what you want to focus on, is the belief. I say your beliefs, emotions, attitudes, and thoughts. Maintain a high vibe about that dream. Set your plan, take one small action every day. And then what I did the first time I left my job was I went from 5 full days to 1 2-hour day. And, so I cut down my hours, and then I went part-time, and then I left. That's the first time that I left my job. And then the second time I did stupid stuff that I don't recommend other people do. So does that help? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, 100%. Again, it's incredibly practical.
Yeah.
And excellent.
Yeah, and faith-filled, so it is both practical, but it's that energy and consciousness and faith. You've got to have that. I say the 4E formula, the energy of enthusiasm, excitement, and expectancy. The 4E formula, bring the energy of enthusiasm, excitement, expectancy. You take those actions, 30 days of consistent small actions every day in that energy. Crazy. I actually have a free giveaway for people. It's called the Money Vibe Challenge. And the 30-day Money Vibe Challenge. And it's exactly that. Set an intention of how much money you want to bring into your life unexpected in the next 30 days. And then every day you get an email from me with a daily action, intention, and affirmation. One small thing every day, and it creates incredible momentum. No kidding. I started one yesterday with my team, and today got a $30,000 intention for the next 30 days. Today got a $24,000 check from a contractor that had been held up for a couple of months and hadn't come through. And then the day after I set that intention, it came in. Energy is creative.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of what you're speaking of reminds me of the work of Michael Lozier, who I had the privilege to mentor under, who wrote the book, The Law of Attraction. And he wrote it more from a neuro-linguistic programming point of view. So everything in that book is practical. It's like the Law of Attraction states that whatever I give my attention, energy, and focus to, I get more of. And then the formula for attraction is identify your desire, give your desire attention, energy, and focus, and allow it, which is essentially believe it, which is the hardest part for people to do, is to believe it. Like, Jackie, I'm looking at my bank account. I'm looking at my weight on the scale. I'm looking at my current reality. I can't switch to that. And in that book, he gives really practical tools for how to shift it. And you're giving extremely practical tools for how to shift it, and things that I'm even learning and hearing for the first time, which is incredible, because this is episode like 271. And I'm always looking for tools to improve my life, to be happier, to be more fulfilled, to have a more balanced mindset, a more balanced life, to know, what fulfills me, and to live a good life. And I think that, that's been a pursuit of mine, and to hear new tools that I can resonate with and know are profound, I'm really grateful for. So I'm definitely excited to go more into your work. So what I want to ask you, because you're going to go play some basketball, so I'm going to throw some big questions at you. Your work is around human potential.
Yeah.
my curiosity has always been around human potential. When I was a kid, I was training martial arts. I was trying to break bricks. I traveled to China to train with Shaolin masters that could break stone with 2 fingers and bigger pieces over their head, train with them. I meditated with monks in Nepal. I have trained with Native American elders and all over the world and tried lots of crazy techniques, meditating in a forest for 4 months, cold training this winter, minus 20 degrees, 30 degrees, the Wim Hof. And you look at people like Wim Hof, Shaolin monks, and all that kind of stuff. And you look at human potential, some people curing themselves of terminal illness. If you look at Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, popularizing that a little bit, but also story of people just using their mind to create extraordinary things, people using their mind to create the reality. If you listen to the Tony Robbins podcast with Conor McGregor, being a martial artist, he was using simple techniques that you're talking about now. Is he was living into it. He was becoming who he wanted to be. He was being it. He was going shopping at stores when he hadn't even been signed to the UFC yet, but believing in it. So
Absolutely.
I've been curious about human potential. When I talked to the Native American elders, I had Carlos Barrios on, who's a Mayan elder, and I met him in Guatemala. And that's why I went down there, because there was a fire ceremony and I wanted to figure out if he's telling me the truth again, because he's saying wild stuff. And he said that when he first saw something extraordinary, he was traveling the world and he went to go see the Sufis, and he was in Egypt because he was exploring other cultures and he was curious about his Mayan culture, and he knew there was a connection in Egypt. So he got invited to this private Sufi scenario, and he said that after 5 minutes, they were doing their spinning circles and they were 3 feet off the ground. And he's telling me this story, and I was like, I made a face of shock.
Right.
And he looks at me and he goes, "That's exactly the face that I made, but it was bigger." And so he's like, I've experienced extraordinary things, and I've also experienced extraordinary states of mind that don't make any sense. So I'm making this very long-winded. So that's all. I'm just curious about what you feel is the limits to human potential and consciousness, where we can go as an individual and as a species, as far as all that kind of extra sensory type of stuff, but also practical, and what are tools just for getting there in a practical way? Because although that stuff is good, and levitation and psychic powers would be great, I think real mastery is enjoyment for life. People, like when you came on the phone, you had such a zest for life, and I think that for me is the most admirable and what's the word? Like the thing I desire most, the thing that I value the most. So like, that's beautiful. If you can wake up and you're really enjoying life, that to me is high quality consciousness. There's nothing else.
Incredible. It's an incredible way to live. Yeah.
So that's a long-winded way to throw a lot of words at you and respond how you wish.
I'll say a couple of things about it. First of all, just thank you for that compliment about my zest for life and everything. So, today's just like a regular day. I did some training, had lunch with a friend, got picked up my son, podcast with you. Some of the most extraordinary experiences that I had today were just driving down the street and watching a dad and his probably 3.5, 4-year-old son run to the car together, and the way that they were laughing and looking at each other, and the playfulness and the light of their energy. And then driving by, I live in a city, I'm in DC, driving by like brick, triplexes, down the street, but this pop of yellow flowers, I think there were lilies, like yellow lilies that were just like so beautiful. So when you understand the experience of life and consciousness, like the joy of life is in every single moment. Like, at a stoplight and looking over at the 2 people in the car next to me, just laughing and, cracking it up. That's what we're here for, is to see, notice, and be aware of these just beautiful, joyful moments. The hug of my friend who I hadn't seen in several months, like, it's just rich and beautiful. So you said, what's my take on human potential and the limits of human potential and consciousness? Well, there is absolutely no limit on consciousness. None, zero. There is no limit on what is possible. Consciousness is the creative, animating energy of the universe. Consciousness is creative. However, you asked me at the same time, what's my take on human potential and consciousness and the limits of it? So consciousness, there's no limit on. Potential, there's no limit on. The problem is that human element. The only challenge we have is the human element. So what do I mean by that? It really is in our sense of being separated from the one, the animating energy of the universe, that is consciousness. And when you're one with that, there's just joy and beauty in everything. You can literally look at a trash heap and just be like, wow, it's like amazing. Look at that. Look at that organic matter decomposing, like whatever, right? So the only limitation on potential is the human. So what do you do with that? Like, I know that's got to be so frustrating for maybe people who are just starting on this path of human potential. It's like, yeah, but what does that mean? And what do I do about it? So what you do about it is you recognize that your life will be limited by the degree to which you believe. And what most people experience is, I believe it because I see it, or I'll believe it when I see it. And the reality is, when you see it, you will experience it. The mind knows no difference between imagination and reality. Imagine your favorite, grandparents' delicious dessert in front of you, and your mouth will water. And then we could go other places with that imagination, but we're not going to go there. We'll keep this family rated, right? And what you can do with your mind, it's extraordinary. So I love, one of my favorite teachings actually is the spiritual power of imagination. Using, I have this talk that I give at churches, Unity churches and whatnot. How are you using your mind? And the Course in Miracles says that you think you're responsible for what you do, but not for what you think. The truth is, you are responsible for what you think, because it is only at that level that we are creative. So the level that we're creative is in our thought world, not just in our action world. And we've got it just all freaking backwards. And I know a lot of other teachers say this. We think we're going to have it after we do it. But the truth is, you have to be it in your mind, in the spiritual power of your imagination. Every day, 5 minutes, clear, consistent seeing and feeling, mind, heart, bring it together, bring forth that mind and heart energy, see it and feel it. What's it going to feel like? What am I going to say? Who am I going to hug? Who am I going to high five when I create or have that success? And it's just a beautiful thing. And, oh, by the way, once you've created that, you're going to be bored as hell. So you better have the next thing that you're going to be ready to create. And some people who don't understand that that's what we're here for, we're here to grow. Some people are like, oh, can't you ever be satisfied? So it's about being constantly satisfied and constantly growing. So there's really good research out of Harvard University. Tal Ben-Shahar has a research on happiness that has proven through social science research that people are happier in the pursuit of a meaningful goal than they are after the completion of it. There's a brief uptick in happiness after you have that like yes feeling. And, depending on your personality, it lasts anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 days. I'm more of the 5 minutes category, right? And then there's a real drop off, and you can think about it, map that onto your own experience. When you're pushing for something, you're striving for something, you're working with your team, you're working with your spouse, whatever it is, you're like going for that thing that's meaningful to you. You're engaged, you're alive. And that's like, oh, did that. Now what? So growth gives us meaning, and it's meaning that creates happiness. And that growth is literally endless.
That's amazing. I totally agree with all that. How did you say it was the constant state of growth? And what was the first part of it? The two states?
No idea.
Because the way that I share it, and this is what I'm attempting to teach kids and people through the book Zen Athlete is, 3 shifts in consciousness. If you're gonna take a kid to shoot a basketball, teach him to quiet his mind, give himself some space, teach him to visualize the shot. They influence the reality. But the third and most important part is where the Zen comes in, is they miss the shot. What's the most powerful and positive perspective they can have in that situation? So how can you grow towards being the best version of yourself that you can be towards your goal, but be fulfilled along the way? Because if you're not there, right, if you're always needing that next step and you're not fulfilled, the whole life is going to be like that, because it's all process.
Right.
When they say
live in fulfillment.
What's that?
Live in fulfillment.
Yes.
Live in the consciousness of gratification and fulfillment.
100%. So what's your tip on, I want to be real quick, because I would love to know, what's your tip on being fulfilled, but I'm not the NBA champion, or I'm not, I'm just in the process. I'm just starting. I don't even know what I want to do. And I'm like, okay, I found out a little bit what I do, but I'm not fulfilled because I am not clear. I'm not whatever that next step is. How do you? help
Well,
their mindset.
yeah, no, I hear you, Matt. So all I can say to that is really fulfillment, satisfaction is a state of consciousness. It's not something that you do. It's like, okay, am I satisfied right now? Like I'm sitting in my office, chatting with this dude with a beard. God only knows who's out there in the ethers watching me. It's like, crap, what time is it? I got to go play basketball. But like right now, and I'm going to nationals. I play on the national senior games. Oh, God, I had to say the S word. I'm playing on the national senior games, with my basketball team. And is my shooting percentage? What's it going to be? Am I going to, but like right now, I'm just like right here. I'm grateful with where I am. I would love to grow my business so that I've got 1 million people thinking with me and talking with me about consciousness studies. I don't have 1 million people who are following me and talking to me about consciousness, knocking on my door saying, Jackie, tell me about consciousness, right? But I have the people that I have, and can I be satisfied and gratified with that while I have the vision for having millions of people, having consciousness be a household word, and for me to be one of the driving forces and thought leadership of people understanding consciousness instead of psychology, that they can actually build their life that way, letting go a little bit of the psychological paradigm, or maybe blending them in a way that's more useful, whatever. But I'm not there. I have 1 million people knocking on my door saying, Jackie, talk to me about consciousness. And I'm like grateful for this moment, for the blog post that I'll write this weekend, for the next talk that I'll give and the next program that I deliver, every single moment. And what am I going to do to expand my reach? Well, I got to get on Matt's show. I got to get on Matt's show again.
You're certainly welcome back. Everything you've shared is beautiful and practical, and coming from a place that I can see a true master. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I recognize you definitely know what you're talking about. So I could definitely talk to you for hours. I know you got to go drain some threes.
Thank you.
I'll leave you with.
I don't know. I'm so much in the threes category, but
slam dunks only.
Right. I've got a mean day. Let's put it that way. I don't know about the threes. My son's got the threes category, and believe me, he tells me about it all the time.
Right. Well, where can people find more about you? And if you have time at 6:05, your best tip on just living like a good life, like around consciousness, just your best tip to live a good life and expand your consciousness.
That's awesome. So, the first thing I just want to say to people who have listened this long and still want to hear anything else I have to say is that I train coaches to deliver this consciousness work. And that really is my biggest passion in life right now, is to create a community of coaches who are delivering the curriculum for conscious living. So I think a lot of people don't know what that means. Let's have that be our next call. Okay. What does conscious living really mean? So I have a whole curriculum that I've written called the Curriculum for Conscious Living. And I'm very specific about what that means. And I train people to coach and facilitate and lead those programs. So anybody who's listening who's like, I want to do that. Fabulous. Call me up. Get on the line and talk to me. Anyway, so my website's jackiewoodside.com. And I've got 3 or 4 other websites as well, but you can probably find all of it there. Find me on Facebook, Jackie Woodside Speaker, or the Vibe Tribe is another group that I have on Facebook. And I'm on all the social media channels. You can find me elsewhere as well. So that's that. And I really, I can't say enough how passionate I am about creating a community of people dedicated to raising consciousness on the planet. Hands down is what I was born to do. All right. And then a tip for better, happier living. I hate to sound so cliche, but to borrow from Ram Dass, just be here now. Every single thing we're doing it's a freaking miracle that you and I are here in this same time era, having this experience in life. I don't know, you're in Toronto, I'm in DC. We can talk to each other like that. You could be in Asia. I've got one of my team members is in Dubai. One of my team members is in UK. I've got team members in Arizona, here in DC. My team is all over the world. And yet, boom, boom, we can have a team meeting like that everywhere. We did today. We had a team meeting today. It's extraordinary. So if life isn't the way that it is. Life is the way that you are. Mm. So who are you? Stay with me. Who are you that life is? Who are you that life is? In other words, how do you say that life is? Because you can find justification, validation for the fact that life, I mean, things are pretty screwed right now. And you can find all kinds of justification for that. The racism and homophobia and the Islamophobia and the terrorism and the gun violence. I mean, it's a shitstorm out there. You're going to find all kinds of validation for that, man. I'm right there with you. And the trees are blooming and summer is here and winter's going to come and Matt and I are friends. And, you know, my son's downstairs and my basketball team saying, come on, Jackie, we got a game to play. Life is beautiful, man.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insights. I could talk to you for another 2 hours, no problem, and pick your brain and sit here. I would sit here and just listen to curriculum after curriculum because I can definitely recognize an incredible teacher when I see one. So thank you so much for coming on, for your work, for quitting your job 2 times.
Twice, right? And you finally got it. Second time.
I get it here.
Remedial job quitting.
Yeah, exactly.
Job quitting. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, enjoy your basketball game. Thank you so much for coming on. And I look forward to staying in touch and possibly having you back on the show.
Awesome. Would love that, Matt. It's so great to meet you.
All right. Take care. See you, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Bye.